What if Bella became victim of zombie apocalypse? It is hard, losing the love of your life. Then again, lose is such an inadequate word. I drove him away, because of who I am. The blood in my veins, simply by existing, made him leave. Charlie hated me like this, I knew, so I tried, really tried to make an effort. My grades were stellar, because I didn't have the drive to do much else. I was working 3 days a week, and saved every penny from my tiny paycheck, so I could say I had some sort of college fund. My friends didn't like it either, I saw the way they stared. It had been 2 months, why wasn't it ending? As if I had any idea. But it seemed that today would be different. Bella, enough is enough, Jessica said sternly. It was a rainy Friday in mid-December, the last day before winter break started. The boys had not so subtly left the table, leaving me, Jessica, and Angela. An intervention. Great. Just what I wanted. We really think that you deserve better than this, Angela said softly. So that's why. We are going to a boat party in Seattle, kicks off the winter break, Jessica said. Well, this was unexpected. If I had to bet money on an intervention, I would have bet for a movie or shopping spree. Boat party. In this weather, I'm not sure if my dad will be okay with it, I explained after a pause to digest the information. Jessica made a move as if to snap at me, but Angela put a hand on her forearm. Why don't you ask him? I don't see why he wouldn't say yes, but if he says no, we'll go do something else, okay? Okay, I said, because I might have been stupid for thinking he would come back and say he loves me, but I'm not dumb. I always thought of myself as independent, able to take care of myself. I needed to stop pining over someone who didn't want me. The rest of the day passed quickly as I fretted on breaking the news to Charlie. I was also confused as to who would throw a boat party in December. Unless the entire boat would be 90 degrees, who would have much fun? Charlie came home a bit earlier than usual, and looked at what I was cooking, soup and cornbread. Looks good, Bells, he said. Anything interesting happen at school today? This was it, the moment of truth. Jessica and Angela invited me to a boat party tonight, can I go? He didn't say anything, so I looked back at him to see if he was even considering it. He schooled his expression into one that wasn't downright shocked, and said, dress for the weather. That was surprising. That's it, you'll let me go. You're 18, Bella, you should be going out, having fun. I'm glad there's something other than school and work for you, he said. I ate dinner quickly, and called Jessica, telling her I could make it. She seemed excited, and told me that she'd be there to pick me up in a half an hour. Then the stress began. What would I wear? I hadn't done anything in months, and a party seemed to be the time to dress up, even just a little bit. I settled on a nicer pair of jeans and a red sweater. Warm, yet kind of stylish. I pulled my hair back into a braid before making my way downstairs. Charlie was washing the dishes, and waved me out the door. I felt kind of bad for not doing them myself, but the honking of Jessica's horn broke me out of my trance. I grabbed my jacket and purse and headed out the door. Thankfully, the drive to Seattle only took about 2 hours instead of the usual 3 because traffic was so light. How did you even know about this? I asked Jessica. My cousin, he works for Max Rager. They threw this party for the new Supermax line, and he invited me, she said. Sounds like a dream job, Angela said. Well, work hard, play harder, right? Jessica asked. She turned the radio station up, and the sounds of bubbly pop music filled the air. I dozed off for a little while, only to be woken when Jessica announced, "We're here." Rubbing my eyes, I saw a huge waterfront house towering above us. The lights were on, and there were party decorations everywhere. Mostly, it was Max Rager posters that were blinking on and off that illuminated the night sky. Jessica led us to the back of the house, to the boat. Well, it was more of a yacht than anything else. There were girls in bikinis and guys in shorts drinking out of the red plastic cups, laughing and playing around. What do we do now? I asked. Well, Jessica said, taking off her coat to reveal a sequined purple top, we mingle. We are fashionably late, after all. The 3 of us moved to the boat, and Jessica introduced us all to her cousin Ryan, a mediocre-looking and sounding 20-something who stared at our chests for too long. Gross. I drew my coat around me tighter and stood by one of those huge heat lamp things. My hands warmed quickly, and I decided that I'd probably stay like this the rest of the night. Someone offered me a beer, which I turned down, and I decided on one of those fancy bottled sodas. It was lukewarm, but it gave me something to do, at least. "Hey sugar, you want some you?" a voice asked behind me. I turned around and saw a man with short dirty blonde hair looking at me. "What?" I asked, sipping my soda nervously. He was looking me over appreciatively, and while I didn't want to, touch him or anything, it was kinda nice to have someone think I'm hot. "Utopium, or you, as we call it. Strongest stuff in the world, it'll fry your brains in a heartbeat," he elaborated. And he was a drug dealer. Great, just my luck. I prefer my brains to be not fried, thank you, I said, turning away. "Well honey, I'm not looking at you for your brain," the man went on, and suddenly there was a hand on my butt. So I did the first thing I could think of, and pivoted to throw my drink in his face. What a creep. My dad always made sure I had pepper spray in my purse, and just in case this guy got violent, my hand found it and turned the nozzle to the on position. "Leave me alone," I demanded. He wiped his eyes angrily and started to say something, but was cut off by a piercing scream behind me. Turning around, I saw that the front part of the boat was on fire. People were screaming, running away from the flames. Looking around, I saw that there wasn't a single fire extinguisher. Technically, that was against the law, but the strangest part is, people were attacking each other as well. One man, or boy, I couldn't tell, was attacked by a woman in a bikini, and when she stared at me, I saw her eyes were bright red. It was so similar to the shade of James's eyes that fear like I hadn't felt in months washed over me. "Run!" My brain was screaming, and my shaky legs rushed to comply. But when I turned around I saw it was too late. The man I threw my soda on, his eyes were red as well, and he grabbed my right forearm as I tried to push past him. He was snarling, saliva foaming at his mouth. "Let me go," I begged. Oh my God, what about Renee? And Charlie? I'd survived so much, gone through so much in the last couple of months. Would I really die like this, on a boat party surrounded by drug-fueled strangers attacking each other? I tugged on my arm. "Please, let me go," I begged. With one final tug, I took a step back only to notice that pain was blooming along my arm. It was less severe than the venom from James, but it hurt. The step back made me catch my heel on the chair behind me, catapulting me off the yacht. I hit the water with a smack, and knew I was quickly losing consciousness. Well, this is it, I supposed. The guilt took a split second to settle in. Charlie, he was so happy to see me doing something, and I never got to say goodbye to him. He silently waited for me to return from this never-ending pit of misery, that now when I've started to come crawling back to him he has to deal with my funeral instead of high school graduation. And him. Over the months since he left, I'd been so careful. I tried not to think about them, not to mull over all the memories with them, how happy I was, like I was really a member of the family. I'd snapped all my CDs, holed myself away from the world behind the walls of homework and work. But now, that I was going to die, I found myself not caring. Edward, I thought, Edward, Edward, Edward. Suddenly, the memories were all there. The way he smiled, that stupid beautiful smile that always got my heart racing. The way my hand felt in his, like we could take on the world together. His cool hand on my forehead after he sucked out the venom from my blood while I screamed in pain. I knew how difficult it must have been for him, but he stopped, and comforted me, like his pain didn't matter. And the way he kissed me. Oh, could that boy could kiss. I mean, not that I had too much to compare it to, but every time he touched me, so damned nicely, I turned to mush. My bones liquefied and all I could focus on was the way he felt, the way he made me feel. I remembered his lips and tongue gliding down my jawline and neck while his hands held my hair away from my face carefully, so carefully, like I was precious and important. My heart was breaking all over again, but I didn't care. Because as my life ended, I wanted to be happy, and I was happy, I knew because I could feel the twisting pain all over my body, in my heart and lungs, but my face was breaking into a smile. I woke up in a body bag. A freaking body bag. I tore my eyes open to the muted sunlight filtering through the yellow fabric. Whoever zipped the bag up left a gap at the top and I stuck my finger in the hole and pulled the zipper down. My stomach was heaving, and as soon as I got the zipper down to my waist I shot up and coughed out what felt like 5 gallons of water. The sun was blinding and I had to blink furiously for a moment. I noticed immediately that I was starving. There was a muffled scream to my right and I whipped my head around to see a paramedic scrambling away from me. There were ambulances everywhere and bodies littered the shoreline. When I reached forward to continue unzipping the bag, sharp pain shot through my arm. I hissed and brought it up closer to my face. There were 3 long scratches, and I hastily covered it up with my sweater. I climbed out of the bag and waved off the paramedics that rushed toward me. "Miss, are you all right?" someone asked. I was starving, and the only thing I could think of doing was cracking this man's head open and oh my God, what had happened to me? Of course I'm not. I woke up in a body bag. I snapped. My mind was spinning, thinking of what I had to do. There was no way I could go to a hospital, not like this. "We need to get you into a hospital," one said. "Absolutely not. I refuse. I feel fine, and I'm not going anywhere with you. Put a live person in a body bag." "Good grief," I said. They shrank away from me, probably imagining all the lawsuits I could bring down from the heavens. "I really think," one started again, "that I am going to go and get my purse, then call my father for a ride home." "That's exactly what I was thinking," I said with a forced smile. I walked away, making sure my steps were steady while trying to keep my dignity as my shoes squeaked with each step I took. There was no way I could be examined now. I walked into the house, which was pretty empty. I suppose they cleaned that area out first before moving out to the yacht. The Max Rager signs were still blinking sporadically, and I resisted the urge to tear them down. My cell phone was waterlogged, so I made my way upstairs to find a phone I could use. I needed to call Jessica and Angela, to make sure they were okay, but I needed to call my dad first. I found the home office easily, and picked up the phone. I dialed Charlie's number by heart and waited nervously for him to pick up. "Charlie Swan," he said gruffly. "Dad," I asked. "Bella, honey, where have you been?" he demanded. "There's stuff about a boat party going wrong on the news, are you all right?" The words, "Yes, of course I am," were on the tip of my tongue but I couldn't bring myself to lie. "No," I whispered, "I'm not, and I just want to come home but I can't find Jessica or Angela. I'll be there as soon as I can, okay? Just sit tight and wait for me," he said. "I know the address, it might take me a while, but I'm coming, all right." "Thanks Dad," I said and hung up. I was starving, but the idea of food was getting more and more repulsive. I walked slowly downstairs again, avoiding the odd looks from the paramedics and police officers. I stumbled into the bathroom to wash my hands and face, and for the first time I saw myself in the mirror. My skin was normally quite pale, but this looked unnaturally so. I looked like a member of The Walking Dead. My hair, which was a chocolate brown, was now shot through with white. It looked like I was 18 and 60 at the same time. A medic thrust an orange blanket at me as I got out of the house and I took it, walked a bit down the beach, away from the people. I didn't want to hurt them, but I knew I probably would. I walked further and further down the shoreline, and took a turn back toward the main street. There were houses giving me cover, and it seemed like the whole street was on lockdown, with curtains drawn and doors locked. As I turned around a large tree, I froze in my tracks. There was a body. Some instinct said it was human and I walked toward it before I could figure out what I was doing. The skull was cracked open, and there were some brains available. My hand reached in and grabbed it and I started eating before I knew what was going on. Part of me was in denial, but the other, more dominant part was just hungry. And it tasted so good. Well, the taste of the brains was absolutely disgusting. But it satisfied something in me that I knew nothing else ever would. By the time I was finished, the worst of my hunger had passed and I felt sick with myself, with what I became. But it wasn't like I asked for it, right? I trudged up to the main street and sat on the curb. After a few moments I draped the blanket over my shoulders. When I breathed out I could see steam coming out of my mouth, but oddly enough I didn't feel cold. And I had a craving for brains. My God, it was like going through puberty all over again. If only there were cheesy videos to help with the transition into zombiehood. Because that's what I was. A monster people made fun of and dressed up as for Halloween. I didn't really know what to do with myself, so I just sat and waited for my dad, while feeling sorry for myself. Time passed, and before I knew it, a white police cruiser was pulling up. Before I could blink, Charlie had rushed out and hugged me tightly. I tensed, of course, because 1, he wasn't a touchy person. I can't remember the last time we hugged. 2, I became a zombie because I was scratched by 1. Could I change my dad into a zombie if I touched him? Sorry, Bells, he said gruffly. I was just so worried about you. Let's get you home, okay? I nodded slowly and got into the car. He had the heater on full blast and it was toasty. I folded the blanket and set it on my lap so it covered my hands. Are you sure you don't need to go to a hospital? He said nervously. That's when it happened. I wasn't in the car anymore, but in what looked like a kitchen, and I was clutching my forearm. It was turning an angry red, and there were a few blisters peeking out from under my fingers. Oil dripped from the granite countertops and onto the floor. Are you sure you don't need to go to the hospital? A woman with long blonde hair and warm brown eyes said timidly as she tried to get a good look at my arm. I said I'm fine. God, you're such a pushy bitch. I screamed at her, but it wasn't my voice, it was a man's, deep and obviously in pain. Everything felt strangled, like I was right there, but miles away at the same time. Why the hell do I even bother with you, you asshole? The woman yelled back, suddenly furious. Then suddenly I was back in the car with my dad. Bella, hello, anyone home? He asked, waving a hand in front of my face. Yeah, I'm fine, I said. And I'm sure I don't need to go to a hospital. He started up the car and I rubbed my temples furiously. What the hell had just happened? And why did I suddenly crave a beer? I never drank, and beer was disgusting. Charlie tried to keep me distracted by talking about how he and the entire police department were working with the Seattle police to find Jessica and Angela. They had calls into the police, hospitals, and medical examiner. He said this one as an afterthought, obviously holding out hope they were alive and well. I spent the entire time staring out the window, watching the trees pass by. It was kind of like being half asleep, that state between being alert and passed out cold, where I could see what was going on around me but I just didn't care. After a while Charlie seemed to understand I wasn't fully with him and stopped talking. Suddenly he was shaking my shoulder. I looked up and saw that we were already home. Bella, seriously, do you need to go to the hospital? It's close by, he said worriedly. I'm serious, I don't want to go. Besides, I promise I'll let you know if I start feeling bad, I said. That seemed to work, and he insisted on helping me inside. I grabbed some pajamas, even though it was just mid-afternoon, and treated myself to a hot shower. Charlie was suddenly called back to the station, informing me halfway out the door that Jessica may have been located. With the fan turned high and the water streaming down on top of me, I finally allowed myself to cry. I took my time drying my hair and getting ready for bed. Before I went to sleep I took a beer out of the fridge and chugged the whole thing, something that felt incredibly strange yet completely normal at the same time. And when I climbed into bed, I noticed something else had changed about me. I couldn't sleep, at all. Hours passed. I heard the cruiser pull up in the driveway, Charlie's boots stomping up the stairs as he went to bed after what must have been a horrendously long day. Had the crunching of the gravel under the tires always been so loud? Looking back on it, I don't think it was. But that wasn't the only thing on my mind. I needed to be pragmatic, like I always was. I needed to look for my next meal. If there was one thing they taught me, it's that I can't be the reason someone is hurt. I could work around my dietary needs, I just needed access to someplace I could get it. A few more hours passed and I heard Charlie get up and move toward my bedroom. Throwing the sheets over my face, I pretended to be asleep. Bella, he asked, shaking my shoulder. Yeah, I asked. Thankfully my voice was scratchy from misuse and made it sound like I actually was sleeping. Honey, I'm so sorry, it's Jessica. The look in his eyes was that of pure pain, but I didn't feel anything. The news was obvious on his face. Okay, I said. I understand, honey, he asked. If you want to talk to someone, a professional, please, tell me. I want you to know that I'll help you as much as I can. That was Charlie, always kind, but a psychologist could help me with this. I'm fine, Dad, I promise, I said. Empty words, that was all it was. I would never be fine again. He nodded, awkwardly patted me on my shoulder and moved out the room. But at the last minute, he stepped back. I hate to tell you this, but there's an investigation going on into what happened on the boat. We'll need you to come in and make a statement sometime soon, maybe tomorrow or the day after. I'm sorry, Belle, he explained. Of course I understood the need for my statement. I'll go in tomorrow, I said. He nodded and shut the door softly behind him. My mind was racing, thinking of all the lies I had to tell. To the police, so I wouldn't get locked up in the hospital, and then to my father, for the same reason. My mother would probably faint if I told her that I was on that boat to begin with, and try to get me back to her in Florida. Rubbing my head, I realized that's all I'd been doing since I came to live in Forks. Lying or dealing with lies. First it was believing a liar when he said he loved me. Now, it was me, in order to protect myself and everyone around me. What had my life become? The following couple of days of break were spent receiving grief casseroles and pies from neighbors and the families of co-workers of Charlie's. Renee referred to as threatening to get on the next aircraft up here or placed me on a plane right down to Florida. However, I refused the usage of the "I want extra time" argument. My mood turned into a bit shorter than common, and that I slammed the receiver down harshly, then puzzled what exactly made me act like that. Like Charlie, she also advocated me to seek expert assist. However, seeing as I failed to need to be killed or locked in a mental group, I became her down as properly. However, some days when I got here domestic, I was confronted with a more pressing trouble. It started out within the middle of yet any other sleepless night time, making it 6 days considering the fact that I slept a wink. There has been this stirring inside the pit of my belly. It turned into clean to ignore at the beginning, but over the hours it were given worse. I tiptoed downstairs, and cut myself a massive piece of chocolate pie Sue Clearwater had dispatched over the day earlier than. The worst aspect approximately turning into a zombie changed into clearly the alternate within the taste buds. I could not taste something unless it became categorized, more highly spiced. As a way to make the pie extra bearable, I doused it in half a jar of sriracha sauce and placed a few tablespoons of Tabasco earlier than chowing down. I ate the complete aspect, washed it down with but another can of beer, and felt handiest marginally fuller. With a resigned sigh, I rinsed off my dish and went again upstairs, passing Charlie's room. My feet stuttered to prevent out of doors his door. I could listen his occasional snores. However, more than that, I was hungry. And he had a mind. An entire, scrumptious mind, not only a few part that changed into leftover. With a pant, I sprinted upstairs and slammed my door shut, and the bang echoed through the house. In a panic, I shoved the desk chair below the handle, then locked my window as well. The sluggish pounding of my heart averaging 1 beat each 10 seconds filled my ears, and my breath became coming out in short bursts. There was a knock at my door. "Bells, are you all right?" Charlie requested. I desired to scream for him to run, however I shoved it down and alternatively known as out. "Yeah, Dad, I am first rate," simply closed the door a piece too hard. "You must move again to sleep, the whole lot's excellent." He sighed. "Bella, I'm going to move into work today, is that okay?" I wanted to cry in relief. Charlie going back to work intended a forestall from the hovering he was attempting so tough to cover, and that he could be out of the house. He'd be secure from me. Of course that's okay. Dad, I promise I will be exceptional. I have nevertheless got that more credit score essay to write down for my lit magnificence, so I will be very well by myself, I stated. I heard his footsteps go away to move downstairs, and breathed a sigh of alleviation, which become changed by way of fear. How turned into I going to get my subsequent mind? I stayed in my room the complete morning, calling a goodbye to Charlie via my bedroom door and simply gazing the wall for some hours. Then it hit me, I may want to visit the sanatorium. There was a morgue, a small one for a small city, however a morgue nevertheless. If I ought to get in, get a brain, and get out, I'd be okay. I might be fed, have a meal for the following week and a 1-2 or so, and nobody would get harm. Going into my closet, I discovered a spare set of black sweatpants, and an undeniable military blue sweatshirt with a big front pocket. I grabbed a plastic field to store the brain in, then took Charlie's cooler that he used for fishing trips and placed it below my bed. It turned into getting older besides, I may want to always tell him I threw it out and acquired him a new one. With a sigh, I changed out of my pajamas and into my vintage jeans and a sweatshirt. I gathered up my purse and car keys, and headed to the grocery shop. I needed to preserve up appearances, and going grocery shopping and changing the cooler I would start the usage of for my brain garage was a should. The simplest region to buy groceries in Forks was a barely run-down marketplace on the edge of Metropolis. Once I first moved here I acquired atypical appears because I used to be a newcomer, a stranger, but over the years they dwindled. But nowadays, the first time I might surely stepped out of the house for the reason that boat birthday party, they were lower back with a vengeance. I assumed that it became due to my deathly pun intended faded pores and skin and my now natural white hair. Or perhaps it's due to the fact all and sundry thinks I were given Jessica and Angela killed, despite the fact that the latter was still categorized as missing, as no frame were observed. Bella, it is suitable to peer you once more, a female who I failed to understand said as quickly as I entered. And I am so sorry about what came about. That's while it occurred once more. I was at a kitchen desk, sipping an espresso. The match I had on changed into scratchy, and that I tugged at my collar, but it didn't help any. I am so sorry. Approximately what came about, an older guy stated reluctantly. It is not your fault, Dad, my voice, now a deep guy's voice, stated. Some idiot notion it'd be amusing to force stoned. As a minimum he's dead, or else I would kill him myself. You should probably leave although. You were by no means proper to Mother when she became alive besides. His face morphed into one in all tightly managed anger. I ought to feel the hatred, the burning choice for revenge coiling in the pit of my stomach. As because it got here on, the memory become long gone, and the air left my lungs in a whoosh. Bella, the woman requested. I just smiled tightly and nodded. Thanks. I bagged the lettuce and carrots quicker than I possibly had to, due to the fact the concept of her cranium cracked open was getting a piece too tempting for my tastes. It seems like handiest the day before today the three of you ladies had been taking up the arena collectively, she continued. Please, do not, I said. I recognize what you are looking to do, however please, simply forestall, I pleaded. Without giving her a risk to answer I driven the cart towards the junk food segment. I loaded up on the chips and fatty, artery-clogging dips, something else I had a sudden taste for. Venturing into the small cosmetics section, I bought myself a pair applications of bronzer. Perhaps a coat or 20 might make me appearance not so lifeless. I also bought some more hot sauce, and for amusing threw in a tube of more highly spiced red warm chili sauce. It'd work higher than the Tabasco. The cashier looked at me surprisingly as she scanned my objects, and after some moments I identified her as a senior from college. I provided a tight smile, tried now not to look at her head, and got out of the shop as quickly as I may want to. After I got again, Charlie had left a message asking me if I was okay, so I referred to as him again whilst unpacking the meals, and we had a quick communication. He appeared satisfied that I went out, even if it was only for grocery shopping. And you write in brilliant paper. You have had a difficult time, however please, don't surrender on college, he said. I used to be silent with horror. College, I'd absolutely forgotten all about it. What if I killed a person? What if I did not age? Can zombies even age? Bella, he asked nervously. Yeah, sorry, I spoke back, rubbing my brow. I promise, I'm going to do nicely in school. University. Yay. He ought to probable tell that the last component turned into sarcastic, however decided no longer to mention whatever. We said our goodbyes, and after I hung up I targeted very hard on not having an anxious breakdown. Greater than ever, I desired college to in no way come. Optimistically if my plan for this night worked, I would have a first-rate supply of brains that I failed to should kill to get. What could I do in university? First things first, Bella. Get the brains. Get out. Repeat. It shouldn't be too hard, right? It became very tough. My window squeaked loudly at 11 p.m., and that I had to hurriedly tiptoe downstairs for the oil, practice it, and soar out into the tree, close the window, and climb down, and make sure maximum of this changed into executed silently. I could not start my automobile, obviously, so I jogged the entire 3 miles to the clinic. I began at the beginning to shop a piece of time, however I used to be type of amazed that I could maintain it up the whole manner there without breaking a sweat. Now getting into the morgue was a piece greater difficult. I needed to sneak into the health facility through a back window in what gave the look to be a sterilization room that became fortuitously empty. I kept my head down and pace-walked to the morgue, my belly twisting the entire way, both out of nerves and hunger. The doorway to the morgue was unlocked, and it turned into darkish, the handiest light coming in from a streetlight that flickered from time to time. It stank of chemical compounds, and with a sigh, I made my way over to the wall. There have been files attached to the doorways of each chamber. It turned into full of names, birthdays and death days. It turned into so overwhelming. They had been absolutely everyone, human beings that deserved to be treated with appreciation and dignity. And proper now, all I noticed was a meal. The lighting fixtures grew to become on all at once, making me jump. I searched round for a place to cover, however there was none. "I am sorry, am I able to help you with anything?" A man's voice stated with a robust British accent. I didn't say something, simply focused on inclined myself to no longer leap on him, and now not in a fun way. "Sorry, I did not capture that. Are you here to perceive any stays?" he asked once more. I stayed silent. This couldn't be my life now, may want to it. "Why are you here?" he stated, his voice turning extra cautious. "I am so hungry," changed into all I ought to come up with to reply. Appearance: "Okay, I've got a couple dollars, the vending gadget works top-notch, if you want a ride to a shelter," he asked. I opened my mouth and closed it again. Then I attempted again, most effective to copy, "I'm in order that hungry." I wistfully tapped the door to a compartment, creating a whole but tinny noise. There was a moment of silence. Then the bombshell dropped. "Oh my God, you're Isabella Swan, aren't you? Leader Swan's daughter. Simplest recognized neighborhood survivor of the Seattle boat celebration last week." I gasped. "How did you already know?" "Flip round first, and I will give you all the brains you need," he said. I turned round slowly. He became a South Asian man, a finely groomed beard and messy black hair artfully gelled lower back. "I knew it," he stated. "Knew what? And who are you?" I demanded. Just then every other pang of hunger let loose and that I pitched ahead onto the desk for guide with a groan. "Oh God, are you okay?" he said whilst dashing forward to help me. I driven him away firmly. "I do not need to scratch you," became all I presented in go back. He nodded once, scratching the again of his neck. "Thank you, I suppose. I am in order that hungry. And unless you will make good on that promise of brains within the following few minutes, you have to likely run," I warned. He had the best idea to look nervous. "Right, sure," he stated, locking the door to the morgue and ushering me right into a corner. He pulled out an elderly girl who turned into draped handiest in a sheet. Hottest mind, coming right up. Part of me wanted to look away, but apparently zombieism cured my squeamishness. "I guess you cannot be a brain-yearning maniac in case you get queasy on the sight of blood. Was she high quality?" I asked. "What?" he asked, getting a few equipment out even as placing on goggles at the identical time. "Became she a pleasing person?" "It is simply that I end up them. I have had a craving for beer and been a chunk snappier than I usually would for the past week. I wager the man whose mind I ate like a fast meals burger became like that. I additionally sometimes get bits of recollections, like I'm living their lives," I defined. "Perhaps you have been snappy because of your buddies are lacking. Nicely, one's useless, one's nevertheless missing." "Oh gosh, I'm so sorry," he stated, looking at my face. "But I am getting their reminiscences too, if I hear or see something that can trigger it," I stated. "That could make experience," he stated. "Don't communicate for approximately minutes, the saw is a piece noisy." So I watched as the mechanical whirring blade reduce open an elderly female, or extra importantly, my subsequent meal. At the same time as I ate, Ravi explained to me what had took place. He had labored for the CDC for a while after getting his medical diploma at Oxford, however become fired seeing that he became 100% okay with the thoughts that zombies exist. "Well, now not precisely. We shouldn't be concerned approximately the flu, or tuberculosis outbreaks," he stated. "Well, we possibly need to, but the actual threat. Organic conflict. Consider it, a single virus, capable of killing hundreds in one pass, it is in which the real hazard is." "How did you realize I used to be a zombie?" I questioned him, completing the closing chunk. I felt a good deal better, extra sated, and stable. He paused and looked at me regretfully before speaking. I nonetheless have some friendly colleagues inside the Seattle office, he stated. I requested for the facts of the investigation. Of path, there was drinking and drug use, he stated, giving me a pointed look. I did not drink alcohol, or do any drugs, even though I used to be provided, I stated. He shrugged and continued. But there may be events of consuming and drug use all the time, we never see mass violence in this scale. So, I wondered my colleague for the autopsy reviews. Every single one of the victims was missing either a sizable amount, or 100% in their mind remember. They are linking it to the fish within the lake, due to the fact manifestly, rainbow trout cross immediately for the cranium. It's proper there in front of them. How may want to they've missed it? If humans do not need to accept as true with something, they won't, I stated. He shrugged and sighed before searching at me with a glint in his eye. Well, between the two of us, I think this courting can cross someplace, he stated. Are you blackmailing me? I asked him in a low voice. Definitely now not, he stated, keeping up his palms in give up. I simply wanted to provide my offerings of mind presenting, and, I am curious approximately the makeup of the virus, so possibly a urine sample. I hopped off the stool and zipped up my hoodie. Shop a few thriller for later, okay? I requested. He wished me a terrific night and gave me his telephone variety for destiny use. So now, right here I was in my bedroom after sneaking in at 5 in the morning, knitting a headscarf. It changed into stunning, virtually, a cable pattern that I in no way found out myself but knew flawlessly. Whilst Charlie started waking up, I shoved it under my mattress and pretended to be asleep. He could continually peek into my room whilst he notioned I wasn't looking. Possibly making sure I didn't have an intellectual breakdown or something at some stage in the night. So, I closed my eyes, breathed normally. Occasionally, because I changed, I held my breath, just to peer what passed off. The longest I may want to go without respiration became about 5 minutes, and after that it became sincerely painful, inflicting my head to swim and imaginative and prescient to darken. After Charlie left, I went lower back to knitting and subsequently finished the headscarf. I were given up, cooked some soup that I later froze to be used later, and completed the whole lot of my classwork for the foreseeable future. Nowadays was the remaining day of wintry weather destroy, meaning that I must arise day after today, and face the stares of my classmates. On pinnacle of that, I used to be the only recognized survivor of the 3 that left, so there might in all likelihood be horrible rumors circulated by using rookies. Perhaps I went right into a vicious rampage and killed every person at the party. I shuddered on the thought, turning my mind to extra cheerful matters. Seemingly, Mrs. Mabel Scott was pretty the cook, and by the time Charlie had come again from work, I had baked 3 loaves of homemade bread, and become serving up a scrumptious to a human, in all likelihood beef stroganoff. Wow bells, what is all this? Charlie asked suspiciously even as setting out his footwear. I completed all my homework, and I got bored. There may be clean bread inside the refrigerator, I added. He opened his mouth after which all at once closed it. Crap, he possibly notion I used to be struggling a psychotic break of some kind. I simply got bored, Dad. Figured it was about time for me to position a few attempt into dinner, I stated. Okay, he said carefully. Nicely, it smells scrumptious, he introduced. Thanks, I stated and tried a smile. Apparently, it tasted delicious as properly due to the fact he ate seconds, and masses of the bread. I ate as lots as I may want to, so he should rest assured that I was now not growing and consuming ailment, or was gorging myself on food, or something he concerned about when it came to me. I used to be extraordinarily sorry that I had positioned him through such hardships. No father must see the matters he saw. You need to speak with your mom, he stated quietly as I was washing up. I wasn't in the kitchen anymore. I used to be staring at the face of an older man, possibly in his early 1940s. He become wearing a pleasing healthy, but regarded greater vintage, like something from the 1950s or 60s. You need to talk with your mother approximately this, Mabel, he said sternly. No, a shriek got here out of my throat. She'll take it away from me. Please, please, you can't say something. Now not now, no longer but. Bells, my dad requested. Sorry, yeah, I likely ought to speak to Mom. Has she been involved? I requested. Charlie had filled her in at the info however made her promise now not to name and weigh down me till I known as her. She had, miraculously, agreed to his terms, and was expecting me to name her and inform her about what took place and how I used to be doing. You know how she is, he stated noncommittally. Greater than I might like to, I joked again. I used to be rewarded with a smile. We stayed in at ease silence the rest of the night, as he watched a sports recreation of some kind in the news and that I wiped clean the kitchen from my cooking escapades and puzzled what I was going to do all night. The following morning got here a great deal too early for my liking. I went via the motions of having geared up for faculty and climbed into my truck. Charlie had already left, an encouraging observe stuck to the refrigerator. I sighed and commenced the engine. It changed into basically like the first day all over again, but even worse. The observing my now white hair, my deathly faded pores and skin. They were fearful of me, it seemed, and that they must be. I used to be a monster who consumed human brains. Jessica and Angela's names have been thrown in, just for an added kick to the rumor mill. Even Mike and Ben, a boy who become getting close to Angela, had been careful round me. Perhaps they were being high quality to one of the simplest survivors of the Seattle boat celebration massacre. Perhaps they notion I'd eat them. What made the whole lot unbearable became the donation pressure for Jessica and Angela's households. Angela had 2 younger brothers who had been now lacking their older sister. Jessica had one older sister living in Idaho and an older brother in Indiana. I didn't understand if they were going to come again into Metropolis for the funeral or what. There have been additionally large condolence cards within the front office that we were all recommended to sign for his or her families. I saw the accusatory stares leveled at me with the aid of students, even instructors, once they idea I wasn't looking. They have been looking at me like I would kill them. And who knows, perhaps I did. Maybe I did kill someone earlier than I used to be positioned into a body bag myself. I had no manner of knowing what had befell. I finished my small amount of assignments and made dinner, this time a hen and rice casserole with homemade gravy. I made a intellectual be aware to put in writing those recipes down so I should nonetheless make the food while the brain turned into completed with. I did name Renee, who became panicked, and threatened to return over to Forks. I just made the remark that she'd be having to percentage a bathroom with Charlie and me earlier than that idea became all at once cancelled. Nonetheless, she changed into so scared and concerned about me, and she or he did not even know the entire truth. I in brief toyed with the idea of telling her the fact, but quickly decided in opposition to it. This isn't like Ultimate Time, whilst the name of the game wasn't mine to tell. This become worse, a good deal worse because I should without difficulty be institutionalized. Then rather than being the creepy lady who died at a celebration, I'd alternatively be the crazy freak who needed to be hospitalized for her very own proper. Charlie changed into nevertheless maintaining a close eye on me. However, a pair days after lessons started out once more he become unexpectedly called out to a vehicle crash and needed to go away quickly after dinner. As he turned into setting his footwear on, there was a knock on the door, and he eyed it suspiciously. Expecting every person, bells. He requested me. I notion about it, then said, no, cannot think about who that would be. When Charlie opened the door, a acquainted voice greeted him, and I went to the front door to see Ravi's grinning face peering over my father's shoulder. What's up, doctor? How are you doing? I requested. This is simply the question I have for you. He replied cheerfully. Bella, who's this man? Charlie demanded. Oh, I'm so sorry. I am Dr. Ravi Chakrabarti, the new coroner. I'm sorry for now not introducing myself to you in advance, Leader Swan, he said sheepishly. Dad, it's pleasant. You may cross, I stated. We simply finished ingesting, but could you like whatever to consume or drink, health practitioner? I asked. And the way do you two recognize every other? Charlie demanded. Ravi's face turned into that of thinly veiled panic, so I stepped in. I went grocery shopping some days in the past, and he noticed that I was in ache, so he requested how he ought to assist. It turned into simplest a pulled muscle in my shoulder, most probably because of all of the stress. I introduced, earlier than Charlie should ask why I had no longer sought medical attention somewhere else. I just desired to make sure Isabella turned into doing okay, Ravi brought. The reason ought to have placated Charlie, and he eventually left, telling me he would call when he changed into on his manner again. I waited till hearing Charlie's automobile flip off the driveway earlier than turning on Ravi. What turned into that? What were you thinking? I had no concept you have been coming. I snapped at him at the same time as angrily starting the espresso machine. Look, I simply wanted to make certain you have been doing dietary-wise, he stated in a critical tone even as setting up his briefcase on the desk. I deflated at that, understanding that he turned into right. I am jogging a piece low, however I think I ought to be top for any other week or so, I stated. And I am sorry about that, I do respect what you're doing for me. He grinned widely. Now not a problem, certainly, it is my delight, he stated. He eliminated a small plastic box, and gave it to me. I noticed a small quantity of brains in it. When he noticed my thinking look he said it came from the identical supply as before. I defined to him that I had a small icebox under my bed for storage. Once I back, he asked that I let him take blood and urine samples. I grudgingly cooperated. Due to the fact, the person became feeding me, I could not exactly in proper judgment of right and wrong say no, could I? We talked for some time about his paintings in England and for the CDC, and he asked me about my plans for the future. I was making plans on making use of to the University of Washington, however I wasn't sure anymore. He became dissatisfied approximately my thoughts and stated that if dyslexic human beings can attend university, truly an undead character should as nicely. He made it sound so smooth, and perhaps, after some time and practice, it is able to be. Time passed, no matter how slowly it did. Mike, Eric, and Ben tried to be supportive, but they eventually gave up on me and left me to my own devices. Ravi made sure I was fed, and was attempting to learn more about the causes and circumstances of my case of zombieism. It was a virus, remarkably tough, and would consume every bacterium he exposed it to. When I came into the morgue, his face would light up and he would tell me how my saliva sample reacted to various strains of bacteria and viruses in different environments. His excitement was oddly endearing. Charlie was still wary around me, but seemed more relaxed as time went on. He was back to inviting people over to the house, and I did enjoy the company. Harry and Sue Clearwater would always bring good food to a human, and I was sure to give them something delicious to take back with them. Billy Black and his son Jacob were also frequent visitors, and Jacob would always speak to me about the status of the car he was repairing. He joked that when he was finished with this project he wasn't sure what he would do with himself. Billy would tell him to get a job and start pulling his weight around the house, causing Jacob to make a particularly atrocious remark about pulling in Billy's wheelchair. Focusing on school was a Herculean task. Being a small town, most of my brain food came from the local nursing home, and one car accident which left a middle-aged man for me to eat. His brain was helpful with my car maintenance, and I changed my oil and rotated my tires one afternoon, with no problem. The clinical depression and overwhelming desire for cocaine, on the other hand, was not helpful. Ravi pulled some strings at the hospital and got me a weekend job filing paperwork for the morgue and occasionally helping out in the billing department. Most of my time was spent watching him fill out paperwork, making sure the paperwork he filled out was correct, and eating the occasional brain. And time passed. Things still were horrifically sucky in my emotional life, the mood swings were like being on drugs, and I always felt like I had to look over my shoulder for a horde of angry townspeople coming to burn me at the stake. But it passed. Jacob Black was wonderful, and I found myself spending some more time with him. I usually focused on schoolwork or talked to Ravi about the new filing system while watching Jacob work on the car. Billy would invite me and sometimes Charlie over for dinner. While driving along the road from La Push one day, I saw a few old and beat-up bikes sitting out by the curb. On a whim, I went up to the house and rang the doorbell. I recognized the boy that answered it as a sophomore from school, but couldn't remember his name. "How much are you asking for the bikes?" I asked him. He seemed a bit wary of me, but that morphed into surprise. "You actually want the bikes?" he asked. I shrugged. Friend of mine works on cars, and now that his current pet project is coming to an end he's having a bit of a crisis. These should cheer him up. He nodded at my explanation. "They're free, we were going to put them out with the garbage anyway. Here, I'll help you load them up." I learned that with my new status as the Walking Dead I was much stronger than I was while living, but I pretended to need his help loading the bikes on the bed of my truck. I thanked him, and went on my way home. "Bella, just what in the hell are two rusted-up motorcycles doing in your truck?" Charlie thundered when he walked in that night. Dad, relax, I said. They were free, and I'm going to take them down to Jake tomorrow or maybe this weekend. Maybe he could fix them up and sell them for some money or something. That calmed him down a little bit, but he still spent the rest of the evening lecturing me on safety. I stuck by my original story for long enough that he decided I couldn't be lying. And it was true, Jake did need some spending money. He and Billy got by, but it was fun to have an extra bit of cash. The next day after classes I went straight to La Push and the look on Jake's face was hilarious. His eyes bulged and he let out a big whoop while pumping his fist in the air. Billy didn't seem very impressed by the rusted metal, and all he said was, "This better not come out of my wallet." One time Jake's friends from school came over, and saw me sitting in the corner going over chemistry homework while Jake was wrestling with the bike. Quill introduced himself politely, and Embry just asked if this loser, by which he was referring to Jake, had asked me out yet, or he would, even though he's never dated an albino chick. After they had left, Jake apologized for Embry's behavior. I just nodded and changed the topic. I didn't need to talk about that just yet. Within a few weeks though, something changed. Jake was no longer smiling and cheerful, but was angry and sometimes snappish with me. "Okay, Jake, seriously, is something wrong? Do you want me to leave?" I asked, slamming my book shut and gathering my things. No, he said. "It's just Embry. He's joined a group, or gang, or whatever they call themselves. Sam's group. It's creepy, and there's just something off about it, but I've tried to talk to him so many times, Quill too, and he just won't say anything. Other than we'll find out soon." He sighed, closing the box of his tools. "What does that mean? Are they going to do something to me? What about Dad? And nobody is acting like anything is wrong, even Dad said that I'm probably overreacting." I got up and put a hand on his shoulder. "Hey, come on, if you think that there's something wrong, there probably is. I'll ask Dad if he's seen or heard anything. And if I were you, I'd probably leave Embry alone. Maybe he's dealing with his own stuff and needs some space." Jake nodded and cracked his neck. "Thanks, Bella. Hey, it's late, do you want to stay for dinner?" he asked. Dad could call Charlie over. I shook my head. "I have work tomorrow, bright and early. If I don't help Linda with the billing paperwork, she will probably kill me." Jake laughed at the image of Linda, a 63-year-old woman who was one of the kindest ladies anyone has met, killing someone. When I got home that night, I did ask Charlie about a gang on the reservation. He said that that was the first he was hearing of it, but he would talk to Harry and Billy next time he saw them. The next day at work, Ravi cornered me as soon as I walked in. "Okay, I have some very exciting news," he said with a slightly maniacal grin. "There's a brain of someone without mental illness for me." I asked. He cocked his head from side to side, mentally running through the list of those in the morgue. "One, and it's a maybe. But there's something better." He waited, bouncing on the balls of his feet, his hands clasped together in front of him. "What?" I asked. "I think you are immune to a vast majority of bacteria and viruses. Basically, you're pretty invincible." "What do you mean, basically, and pretty?" I asked. He ushered me over to a small refrigerator filled with petri dishes. I couldn't remember when that came in. I made a mental note to pay more attention. "Your blood has killed and destroyed every virus I have exposed it to. I don't know about the more fun ones, like Ebola, or hepatitis A, but you are immune to every commonly encountered virus and bacterium. It's amazing, really." I snorted. "It makes sense though. Dead people can't get sick. Why should I be able to?" He closed the door to the refrigerator and made a disapproving sound. "Don't call yourself dead. Technically, you still have a heartbeat. You're just undead." I rolled my eyes. "Just undead?" I echoed. "Yes, only undead. Now help me transfer him," he said again while donning gloves. "What happened to this one?" I asked, donning gloves myself. "Gunshot wound. It entered through the back, which was somewhat poetic. Exited through the front but destroyed his lung. He might have made it, but he bled out. He was found in Beaver, but the powers that be brought him here instead. His brain is in the fridge, do with it what you will," Ravi said with a flourish after we had transferred the man to the shelf. I pushed the body of my meal forward and closed the door. Sunday morning, I sauntered into Ravi's office. He looked somewhat hungover, but that wasn't important. Hey Ravi, guess what? I asked. What? Stop yelling, he groaned. Yo mama so fat she was arrested for having 10 pounds of crack, I said, and immediately burst into giggles. Lovely, he said, and softly slammed his head down on his desk. I was cracking childishly inappropriate jokes the rest of my shift, and Ravi was silently suffering. Also, I could finish a crossword in about 10 minutes, so that was fun. The man had a way with words, so I made the most of it and got to work on my application essay for the University of Washington. Charlie was thrilled when I announced that I would be applying to the university, and he was sure that I was going to get in. I didn't quite feel his optimism, but I was going to get all the help I could from my meal and write a killer essay. I went over to Jake's Sunday afternoon after Ravi told me to get out of the morgue, but for some reason I couldn't find him in the garage. I knocked on the door and Billy called out that he was on his way. He didn't seem surprised when he saw me, but he wouldn't open the door farther than what was necessary to accommodate his chair. Bella, I'm so sorry about this, but Jake can't go out today. He's sick. You must have seen the flu that was going around. He asked. I had, and many of my classmates were dropping like flies. It only seemed to be a 24-hour thing though, so I hoped Jake didn't catch anything worse. Part of me wondered if I should fake sickness so I would seem more human, but when I imagined Charlie's hovering, and possibly his insistence on seeing a doctor, I discarded the thought quickly. I nodded at Billy. Yeah, I have. So he caught it too. That sucks. Tell him to get well soon, and if either of you need something, just let me or Charlie know. It wouldn't be a bother. He gave a small smile. I will, thank you. Then he backed away and closed the door. Jake didn't call me for 2 days, so I figured the virus wasn't a 24-hour thing. Ravi said that it can take up to 2 weeks for symptoms to completely disappear. So, I took some time and gathered all the necessary documents, including essays, letters of recommendation, one from a teacher, one from Ravi, and mailed everything to Seattle. To celebrate, Charlie bought a cake I pretended to enjoy, and stated that he did invite Billy and Jake over, but Jake was still sick. Harry's family was also dealing with the flu, and couldn't make it either. Ravi came over though, and Charlie thanked him profusely for his help with my essay and writing one of my letters. I picked up an extra shift on Friday night, as Jake still wasn't feeling well, and was discussing career options with Ravi. Well, obviously, I need food, I stated. Becoming a doctor would make the most sense. Ravi shook his head vigorously while chewing a mouthful of food. I waited until he swallowed, and he said, you know what we do in medical school? We practice on each other. Nobody will be able to get your pulse, blood pressure, or draw your blood. You'll be outed immediately. What about nursing? I asked. Same problem, he said with a knowing look. What do you like? What are you interested in? I sighed. I guess I always thought psychology was pretty interesting. But I don't want to be a school counselor or administrator, or whatever. It just seems so boring. And I do need access to brains. No, Ravi said. I'm thinking more of a clinical psychologist. They employ those in hospitals, and look here, the morgues are never heavily guarded. You could just grab a snack before going home. I grimaced while he grinned. Yes, just a quick snack. Not a big deal. But he was right, in a way. At the very least, it was something to think about. It became the following weekend that Ravi cheerfully told me not to come into paintings. There had simplest been one death, however the own family desired the character to head immediately to burial, and the morgue changed into presently empty. I had a good deliver of brains for the subsequent month or so I wasn't involved, but the idea of having nothing to do was truly terrifying within itself. The weather turned into slowly however genuinely getting hotter, and a concept that had been bouncing around in my head for some time decided it become a great time to get continual. I dialed Ravi's number with a sigh. I truly failed to sense like doing this on my own. Couldn't get enough of me? He asked. I may want to pay attention the sound of laser weapons within the heritage, and he became chewing on something noisily, likely making the maximum of his time without work by consuming junk food and gambling his stupid games. Something like that. Pay attention. I used to be questioning if you may do me a favor. I asked. The sounds of the sport have been abruptly silent. Is it something zombie related? Count me in. I will placed on pants proper now, he stated excitedly. I remembered that British human beings known as undies, pants, and cringed on the undesirable intellectual picture. No. My God, Ravi. Ew, gross, no. I shuddered. Just meet me at my house. We must probably use your vehicle for this. I do not know how nicely my truck ought to take it. Certain factor. I'll make a brief picnic. At the least it's extremely sunny today. He said and hung up. I stared on the telephone, thinking what precisely happened. Approximately an hour later he became at the front porch with an sincere-to-God picnic basket. This incident was how I learned that Ravi could definitely prepare dinner in his spare time, despite the fact that at work he frequently ate cereals and packaged ingredients. I felt somewhat insufficient with my small amount of brains in a Tupperware. He ushered me into the automobile and asked wherein we have been going. I gave guidelines to the exceptional of my ability, looking at my telephone for something that would help me. We sooner or later observed the stop of the path that I used to park my truck in. I left there fast, Ravi hurrying to capture up with me. So, wherein precisely are we going? He requested subsequently. A place I used to go along with my now ex-boyfriend, I wager, I said after a pause. Ah, he replied. So, he dumped you. I shot him a glare without a malice behind it. He held up his fingers in mock surrender and shrugged. I had a more youthful sister, I realize what it's like. I nodded. Then, wait, you had a more youthful sister. He sighed. Inebriated driver. She become in a crosswalk in the entirety. It tore up my mother. We hardly ever talk anymore. I stopped on foot, grew to become around, and gave him a brief hug. I'm so sorry, I did not know. He hugged me lower back. It's now not your fault, but, return to the topic at hand. Wherein are we going, and, extra importantly, why? I started on foot once more. It turned into a lovely location, and if I cannot go with him, why shouldn't I be able to pass and make it my region? I avoided matters that strike a chord in me of him, and searching again, that in all likelihood wasn't the maximum emotionally healthful way to deal with things. Well, I am looking forward to this, he stated, shaking the picnic basket, and desire it soon. I am hungry. I need appropriate food, mental healing, and a pleasant cigarette. I am hungry too, I said, staring pointedly at his head. No thank you, omit zombie, he stated. I laughed until we were given to the clearing. He plopped down at the grass that changed into now useless cheerfully. Wait, you, a physician, smoke? I asked. Isn't that in opposition to the rules? Simply sometimes. Usually deliver a lighter, though. It comes in beneficial, he said with a smile, while opening a ham sandwich and giving it to me. I added the brains and the hot sauce, and turned into about to take a chew whilst a sense of entire wrongness washed over me. I shot up, with my return to Ravi. Get up, I whispered. Bella, what goes on? He said as he were given to his toes and dusted off his pants. I do not know, just live in the back of me, I whispered. Bella, he stated in what he in all likelihood was hoping could be a calming voice. What is the problem? At that second, a person got here into the clearing. I stepped again instinctively, backing Ravi into the tree similarly. As the character got here ahead, I saw that it wasn't a person in the end. Laurent, I requested. See, you realize each different and the whole lot, it's no problem, Ravi stated, looking to soothe me. As Laurent came closer I saw that his eyes have been now not the friendly gold color I had come to anticipate with vampires, however blood crimson. He had consumed a human, and had executed so these days. Bella, he asked, you keep in mind, I spoke back haltingly. I did not count on this, he said. You look an awful lot distinct than I keep in mind. I suppose people do exchange greater than we do. As he came nearer, his expression modified. Curiosity and disgust. And that I notion you lived in Denali with that coven, I stated. Coven? Ravi asked. I elbowed him softly to maintain him quiet. I discovered finally that it wasn't to my tastes. I came to go to the Cullen house. They've left, it seems. He made the statement give up like a question. He walked to the facet, and that I matched his actions, making sure Ravi become continually in the back of me. Sure. They could no longer maintain up appearances many of the human populace, I stated. He nodded. The reasoning must have made experience to him. I am surprised you are here, weren't you a pet of theirs? He requested. Okay, that changed into best barely offensive. Something like that, I stated dryly. Puppy, Ravi whispered. I elbowed him barely more difficult than the final time, hoping he might get the message and live nonetheless in quiet. The feeling of wrongness simplest accelerated the closer Laurent got here to me, and part of my thoughts turned into wondering what this intended. Did they visit often? Laurent asked. From time to time. I will let them realize I saw you, I lied easily. I was hoping it would make him leave quicker. He cocked his head at me with a smirk. The residence smelled like it had been empty for an extended whilst. Ravi became starting to fidget, and that I reached round so I should keep onto his arm via the safety of his blouse. Who's this? He asked pleasantly. Do you want Alaska? I requested rather. His mouth lifted at the nook, as although he understood what I was doing. He shrugged gracefully. It changed into a unique enjoy, residing in a single region for such an prolonged period. I liked Tanya's family, her sister Irina even extra. But the restrictions are so difficult. Sometimes I just cheat. He stated the final word with a predatory smile. I raised my eyebrows nonchalantly. Did Victoria ever discover you? This appeared to surprise him, and his expression changed into a more impartial one. Sure, she did. I'm really here as a choose to her. She might not be satisfied approximately this, however, what can she do approximately it? About what? Me, killing you. Although you don't odor sweet like you used to. I simply don't need to allow her win, you recognize. She's still upset about James, and your Edward killing him. This way, she thinks it would be even. However, she did flip her back on me, the ones many years in the past, so this would make her and that I even, you see. And the opposite one, in the back of you, he have to go as properly, do not need anyone to talk, Laurent stated. I improved and thrust Ravi at the back of me. Get out of here, run, I stated. He tried to drag me back with him, but I shoved him away and became to Laurent. He turned into grinning, excited. It made me livid, so indignant. So when he wrapped a hand round my neck and lifted me excessive inside the air and slammed me in opposition to the tree, I noticed purple. I hissed and scratched his arm and his face. Shockingly, my nails gouged deep into his skin, and he screamed in pain. I was let cross and fell to the ground, snarling on the monster who might kill Ravi. Laurent Speedy made a fist and punched me in the chest. I flew throughout the clearing and smashed into a tree. There has been a dull pain throughout my again, but it did not matter. All that mattered become killing him. I ran ahead and dug my nails into his side. He screamed again, and lay on the ground clutching his facet. I straddled his frame, and wrapped my arm round his neck, setting him in a headlock, and my different hand turned into pulling on his neck. The fury, pink hot, pulsed via me, and that I ripped his head from his frame. I held it from the hair as the anger tired out of me. I saw the body twitching, slowly making its manner in the direction of me, and I shrieked. What had I simply carried out? How became I capable of doing that? The stupid ache in my back have become a bit sharper, more pronounced. I grew to become my neck and noticed that a sharp department had pierced my returned. It wasn't coming out to the front, however it become deeply embedded. Laurent's body become nevertheless twitching, and I had to sometimes take a step lower back so his body would not reform. With one hand, I frantically felt round for my cell phone and dialed Ravi. Bella, what passed off? Are you okay? He asked frantically between gasps. I want you to come back returned, right now, I stated. I want your lighter. I have such a lot of questions, however I'm simply going to do what you inform me to for now, then I'll freak out. Okay, positive, sounds exact, he babbled. Are you injured in any respect? Because I'm able to assist with that, in case you are. If you have not observed, I am a health practitioner. Medical doctors are commonly correct at supporting injured human beings. Or zombies, it really doesn't matter in any respect in case you reflect on consideration on it. I sat on Laurent's body so it could not pass very a lot at the same time as Ravi babbled on in my ear. I grasped the branch that became in my back earlier than stealing myself. There was a snap and that I whipped my head around and I saw a creature. It appeared like a canine, or maybe a wolf. However, wolves simply did not get that large, it was impossible. It was jet black, and superior towards me. I hung up the phone suddenly and stood up so I was nevertheless on Laurent's body. The factor moved forward some yards before I all at once pulled the branch out of my body. It made a squelching sound because it got here out, but there has been very little pain. I threw it subsequent to Lawrence's head. It was blanketed in blood and became tremendously infectious. The movement pulled the wolf up short. It cocked its head at me and stopped shifting. I felt a mild sense of unease, but nothing like the feeling of wrongness that Laurent provoked. It abruptly sat down, and two greater arrived from the shadows. They checked out the primary one seated, after which looked at me. Lawrence's body gave a in particular vicious spasm. "Chill out," I growled at it. The opposite two wolves sat down after a couple of minutes of searching between me and the huge black one. Perhaps they were excellent smart, like those genetically engineered animals. There was a noisy cracking noise and Ravi emerged into the clearing, his lighter held out high like a loved prize. "I have were given it right here ah." He gave a shriek whilst he saw the wolves. "Relax, they haven't tried to kill me," I said and deftly grabbed the lighter at the same time as thinking about Lawrence's body. I'd be too chewy for them. I knew I had to rip it into pieces, but did the portions should be a certain length. Perhaps I should just get the arms and legs removed to be secure. "Now you must go once more." "What?" he yelled. "Have you ever misplaced your thoughts?" "Closing time," I checked. "I am stronger than you. So, go away." "I should rip him up into portions," I said. One of the wolves made a snorting sound at this. "Oh." Ravi was nodding frantically and his voice turned into rising with quantity as he endured. Yes, of direction you have to rip him into pieces. A simple explanation could be too much for you." "Damn it, Ravi, he changed into going to kill you." I shouted again. "Now I'm going to do the thing again, or attempt to, and then I'm going to set his frame on hearth. I promise, I'll inform you the whole thing tonight, simply you want to head, now." "Proper. Fine," he said. "Have an amazing day," he paradoxically said to the three wolves that were watching the change. One of the animals snorted. As quickly as he changed into out of sight, the black wolf got here ahead and grasped Lawrence's foot in his mouth. "No," I yelled and lunged ahead and grabbed the leg. The wolf dropped it and subsidized away, its lips curling to show tooth. I right away inspected the leg for any of my blood. The final factor this region needed was a massive mutant wolf that turned into a zombie. The leg changed into moist with saliva, which becomes sort of gross, however not my hassle. There was no blood on Laurent aside from what became on his shirt, fortuitously. "Back up, doggy," I said to the animals. They failed to move. Again. I'm critical. Shoo. They moved back a few paces carefully and that I rolled my eyes. "I wager that is the excellent I'm able to get." I closed my eyes and focused at the anger I felt when he threatened Ravi, and while he threatened to kill me. My frame felt more potent, extra alive, and that I positioned my knees on Lawrence again and wrenched his arm away from his body. I used to be satisfied, and moved on to the alternative arm. I became round and the animals immediately were alarmed, crouching down and baring their enamel. The adrenaline became flowing through me effortlessly, and I dropped the arm I had, snarling as I confronted them. The black one barked at the others, and they sponsored up some more paces. They still appeared like they may assault, but I decided to cognizance on the main chance. Hissing, I ripped his legs off, and seeing the now mangled body of my enemy, I ought to loosen up. Anger and hatred tired from me, and that I gasped softly. I felt a little wiped out, however pulled the lighter from my pocket. I flipped the switch, looking forward to flame and nothing. "Oh, come on," I said, flipping the switch repeatedly. On what felt like my 30th attempt, a small flame got here out, and that I speedy placed it to the frame, which thankfully ignited without difficulty. I made certain that the branch I had pulled from my back became added to the pile. The smoke turned into an odd pink shade that irritated my throat. I held my nose and breathed through my blouse till the entirety was burned. As soon because the body become decreased to ash, I stomped out the flames so they would not unfold to the dried grass. In a bizarre act of helpfulness, the wolves became their backs to me and dug up the dirt so the hearth could be included. I failed to apprehend what become going on until a big quantity of dirt hit me head on. I cussed and flipped the brown wolf off, then left. My activity turned into accomplished. Now, I had to discover an indignant health practitioner and get my return fixed. "I can't believe you would keep something like this from me," Ravi said for what seemed like the 100th time. "Vampires actually exist, and apparently, mutant dogs too. He was picking through the wound on my back while I lied on the bed of my truck. He was hunched over me, using a flashlight and some tweezers to clean me up. There was remarkably little blood, most likely because I had such a faint heartbeat. I craned my neck to glare at him. "You're getting on my nerves, Ravi. And I think you are taking more time for this than strictly necessary." "Well, forgive me for being thorough," he shot back. "Yeah, I'd hate getting an infection and dying," I said dryly. Ravi groaned. "That was not funny," he in his most British accent said while taking his gloves off. "It was kinda funny." "No, it wasn't." "Yes, it really was. I'm hilarious. Just get up and give me the garbage bag already." "Shut up, Ravi. You're not the boss of me." "Technically, I am." I shoved the trash bag at him and he put the gloves that had my blood on them in it. I tied off the bag and climbed down from the bed of my truck to put it next to my feet. Ravi climbed in after a few minutes. "So," he said once we pulled out onto the road, "do I have to worry about more dangerous vampire assassins coming after me?" I laughed at the idea of Victoria as one of those legendary assassins, then stopped. The idea might not be that far off from the truth. "I don't think so," I said. "Laurent said that it was a coincidence that he found us there today. And now that he's dead, he can't exactly go blabbing to Victoria about finding me. And you were never part of the original plan anyway. She doesn't know that you exist. Of course, I'd like to keep it that way, so I'd really appreciate it if you called me right away if anything suspicious happens." Ravi nodded. "Yeah, that won't be a problem." I shook my head at the events of the day. "I can't believe those dogs, though they seem somewhat intelligent, so maybe they're not wild animals." "Can we talk about this later? I'm just kind of tired of all this," Ravi said. "I just want to go home, do Call of Duty and sleep well tonight." "This can wait until tomorrow. Or the day after." I nodded. "Yeah, I understand, I've been there." On the ride back, we just listened to the crappy radio of my truck while discussing our plans for the day. I had to cut back on shifts at the hospital because midterms were coming up. I needed a better GPA than last year if I wanted the University of Washington to even give me a shot. Calculus and physics were a struggle, but Ravi would help me when he could. I thought I had a good chance of doing well on both exams. Ravi was going on and on about this new video game he was planning on purchasing as soon as it was released by the time I pulled up in the driveway. "Keep the wound clean, I'll drop by sometime tomorrow afternoon to check on it," he said. "Eat plenty of brain food." I rolled my eyes as he got out of the truck. He took the garbage bag with the bloody gloves with him. He said that he would drop by the morgue and put it in the biohazard waste disposal to make sure the poor residents of Forks were safe from my virus. Charlie was back from work an hour or so after I got back. I told him that I went on a short hike with Ravi but didn't mention where, or the fact that I saw mutant wolves that could apparently somewhat understand human or zombie communication. He gave me a look and then demanded why I was spending so much time with Ravi, reminding me that although I was 18 I was still his child and his responsibility, that Ravi was much older, and that I needed to tell him what exactly was going on. I shot back that I could quit my job and stop talking to my boss if he hated doctors that much. He held up his hands in surrender, his worry gone for now. That night I snacked on a brain while working well ahead into my homework. The visions still happened occasionally, but with this person for some reason they were very faint and blurry. I noticed that I was somewhat detached emotionally, but that wasn't really a bad thing. I could focus on important things rather than worrying and feeling. It happened around midnight. I had long since given up on doing homework and was instead watching reruns of Ellen from a few years back. The small tap of something bouncing off the side of the house didn't quite register at first, but around what had to be the third or fourth tap I turned off the volume and put the brain back under my bed. I looked out the windows cautiously and saw Jake sitting in the tree, throwing what looked to be pebbles of a decent size at my window. I unlocked it slowly. Jake was sitting on a branch, very relaxed despite the fact that he was about 20 feet off the ground. "Nice to see you," he said neutrally, not moving. He tossed a pebble in my direction without any real power behind it. I caught it before it could hit the house. His eyes widened slightly at the motion. "So we're talking again?" I asked. My voice carried far in the quiet night. The only other noise was the soft rustling of leaves outside the window. "If you'll let me in, I'd like to," he said, moving to get up. I backed away as he came forward. He leaned forward and pushed with his legs, catching his hands on my windowsill and coming into contact with the siding of the house with a dull thud. We froze, but Charlie made no move to get up. Jacob pulled himself up and then was suddenly in my room. There was a long and awkward silence before I broke it with, "And what exactly are you doing here?" He rubbed his hair self-consciously before putting his hands back in his pockets. "I hadn't really thought about what exactly I was going to say when I got here," he said. "Well, 1, you technically just said something, and 2, you put yourself into a lot of trouble coming here, so you have to have something important to tell me," I said. He cracked a small smile that quickly disappeared. "I just want to know, Bella, what happened to you." "What do you mean?" I asked. "You've changed, and I need to know what happened," he said. "Wow, that was rich. I've changed. Really? I'm not the one that goes from being my best friend to ignoring me to hopping into my bedroom window at 12:30 in the morning with this interrogation of crap. I don't understand just what the actual foo." "I was there," he said. "Okay, I was there, and I saw you." "Saw me where? What are you even talking about?" I tried to keep my voice calm as he became more agitated. "Today, all right, I saw you today," he said. "It's only been today for, like, 45 minutes, I said. "Fine, then, yesterday. I saw you yesterday. I saw you kill the vampire. I saw you," he repeated the last part. My stomach dropped to the floor. "I didn't see you yesterday," I said after a while. "Yes, Bella, you did. I was there, in the clearing, and you killed that vampire in front of me," he insisted. Obviously, he saw me kill Laurent. There was little doubt about that. I was caught red-handed, so to speak. But the one part that wasn't adding up was the fact that I didn't kill him in front of you. The only person who saw that was Ravi, and there were some wolves. He finished my sentence for me. I gasped. "But how? What?" Jake groaned quietly and sat down on the chair next to my desk. "I can't tell you everything. It's not allowed. But, if you already knew, that would solve everything. And you do already know. I've told you this before." He paused, looked at me intently. While he was talking, I had pressed myself up against my wall in horror at the implications of what he was saying. Jacob made no sudden movements, seeming to understand that I was having an extremely difficult time understanding just what exactly my life had turned into in a matter of minutes. "I did tell you, Bella. It was that afternoon you and your friends came to the beach. We went for a walk, and I told you the stories. You were only interested in one, but the other one I told you, about my ancestors. You have to remember that one." He sighed while getting up. "Maybe when you understand you can trust me with what happened to you." "I hope you can, but I would try to understand if you couldn't." "But Bella," he paused. I met his eyes warily. "Red eyes or no red eyes, you're still the most important person to me." With that statement and a small sad smile, he exited my room. Once he was gone, I moved to the window to close it. I saw him disappear into the trees next to the house, running at a suspicious speed. I tried to remember that day he mentioned. But my human memories were muddled somewhat, and the pain and misery of the last few months of my human existence made it easy to avoid thinking about. Then again, I didn't think it would be difficult to understand. Jacob was a human, but admitted to seeing me kill a vampire. Something he always claimed not to believe in, but now felt comfortable speaking about. He knew I knew about vampires. The only other living entity, for lack of a better term, that had been there had been Ravi, who did not actually see the killing of Laurent. The others had been the wolves. Werewolf, I muttered to myself. Of course it was, because my life had to be more complicated, right? Unwilling to deal with this added, completely uncalled for stressor, I went to bed and plugged in my iPod. The noise of the music gave me something to focus on other than the fact that my best friend was a freaking werewolf. But, he was still my best friend. That had to mean something, even now among the insanity that I had suddenly been thrust into. I decided that I would go to Billy's house tomorrow morning or in a few hours, as it was already early on a Sunday morning. Could Jacob and the other werewolves be the ones killing the hikers? There had to be an explanation for what exactly was going on. Maybe they could be persuaded to learn a new way. I sighed too loudly and turned to my side. I punched my pillow in frustration, but that didn't actually help. My mind was spinning too fast for me to actually understand what I was thinking. It was a miracle at least, that at this time the brain I had eaten was not unlike myself. He was another elderly person, introverted, and more interested in history and art than the daily happenings of other people. His mind was quiet. The only way I could actually tell I ate someone was the occasional visions I got of watching a documentary on the Revolutionary War, or suddenly understanding how to shade an object to look three-dimensional. His death came from a heart attack, and it was quick and painless. When the sun started filtering through my blinds, I decided to get up. I was earlier than Charlie, something that rarely happened. Realizing that it had been about 2 or 3 days since I had last eaten actual food, I made myself some toast with peanut butter, salt, sugar, and copious amounts of Tabasco. It almost tasted like something. Charlie came downstairs while I was washing my dishes, and out of guilt for being such a terrible daughter the last few days I made him scrambled eggs with cheese and bacon. "What's all this for?" he asked suspiciously, even though that didn't stop him from eating. I sighed dramatically. "Well, Dad, I guess you're never getting breakfast from me again, if this is how I get treated." He took in my already dressed appearance. "Going to see Jake and Billy today?" he asked. "Yup," I replied. "Going to get that fight between you and Jake settled. Let's see how it goes. Might take a few minutes, might take all day," I said. "I'll call if I'm going to be late." Charlie nodded. "I did teach you how to throw a punch right. So if he tries anything, Billy is a good friend, but don't let that get in your way, Bells," he said. That actually did make me laugh. Please, I could totally take him on and win. I rolled the window down as I was using. The cool air, salty from the ocean, blew my hair in a million exclusive directions. I pulled the white strands right into a knot at the base of my skull to keep it out of my face. The experience to L.A. push seemed to fly through, with the wind in my truck, and buzzing along to the songs at the radio. Earlier than I knew it, I was pulling into Billy's driveway. I sighed as I killed the engine. What precisely I was going to say, I had no concept. Something had to be carried out approximately this, something this was. I walked to the door, and earlier than I even knocked, Billy had opened it. He probably heard me coming. "Jake's dozing," he informed me. Well, that wasn't something I had planned for. Darn. I sighed and shrugged. "Are you able to inform him that I will be on the seaside? He can come and discover me, or I should come returned right here and kick his ass. It is as much as him." Billy gave me a wry smile at that and promised to relay the message. Based totally upon his recent conduct, I wasn't 100% certain that I thought him, but he changed into the fine danger I had. I sighed and headed all the way down to the beach. It wasn't raining, incredibly, and there has been a moderate breeze that ruffled my hair. Not too long had passed before a wad of wet and squishy plant of some sort changed into thrown at my again. I grew to become around to peer Jake grinning sheepishly behind me, a new wad of seaweed in his hand, ready to fly at any moment. "Is that how we greet each other now?" I requested blandly. The smile fell from his face. "Sorry," he mumbled. "Simply wanted to break the anxiety a touch." "Well, Jake, perhaps this communique ought to be stressful," I snapped. "I used to be pretty aggravating while you scaled the tree and jumped into my room. Speak me about what you saw the previous day, okay? So yeah, let's hold this hectic." He seemed slightly taken aback. "So, you're telling me that what occurred the day gone by was actual," he said carefully. I rolled my eyes. "Of course it was actual, you fool. You noticed it. I am assuming others noticed it too. You're speaking me about killing vampires, so manifestly you agree with what Billy was saying, approximately anything. So shall we simply get on the equal web page, okay?" I gave him a second to respond and he nodded vigorously and said, "Yeah. You're a werewolf," he agreed. "You realize the way to kill vampires?" "Sure I do," he stated. He kept it short. This turned into going to be like pulling enamel. "And the way do you recognize that?" He appeared amazed. "Failed to? You don't forget the tale I told you?" "No, Jake, I forgot, due to the fact I've been dealing with a few difficult shit for a while." "So why do not you deliver me a break and in reality answer the questions I ask in place of asking a few of your very own?" He sighed. "It became surpassed down from our ancestors on the way to kill them. We work in a percent and our enamel are robust enough to break through their pores and skin. It's one of the few matters that honestly make feel proper now. However, Doing the killing is absolutely pretty a laugh, he finished with a snicker. And while humans convey up the lacking hikers, I gave a moment for him to interject something but he did not. Do you have anything to do with them? Have you ever and the others ever killed each person? His expression changed from dumbfounded to horrified in and on the spot. Are you listening to yourself right now? You virtually assume I am going around killing humans. Properly, it's now not like you haven't given an excessive amount of to signify in any other case. And you are telling bragging, even, about how clean it's miles with the intention to kill a vampire. Human beings would be not anything to then you. Human beings could be easy. I shouted at him. Bella, we do not kill human beings, we defend them. Whenever we caught the heady scent of a vampire we got there too overdue. And yeah, it sincerely sucks. However, we never might kill a human. Maybe it is extra than what I'm able to say for you, he stated. My jaw dropped. Excuse me, and just what the hell is that supposed to intend? Look, Bella, I do not know what you are, but you killed that vampire faster than maybe I could. It might be easy so that it will kill a human with the power you've got. Firstly, wow. In reality, Jake. Wow. Secondly, I do not kill humans. 1-3, I'm a zombie, so I just eat their brains. Jake laughed at that. Definitely, you anticipate me to trust you or a zombie. That is the selection you're going with. I used to be so indignant I ought to almost physically sense my temper upward push. Yeah, I am a zombie. I work in a morgue, ingesting human brains and thinking when the subsequent meal is coming from. Come on, you saw me before I went to that boat birthday celebration. I am not human anymore, have a look at me. Do you severely suppose this hair was a non-public style choice? No, Jake stated, smiling at me like one might smile at a baby who became talking to their imaginary friend. No, that's simply not feasible. No, Jake, what's now not feasible is the reality that you're so goddamn thick-headed, which you do not accept as true with me even if I'm telling you the truth. That is what's not possible to apprehend proper now. I am telling you I'm a zombie, I'm telling you I eat human brains, and also you saw me. You noticed along with your own eyes what I'm able to, and you simply don't need to accept as true with it. Why not? He shook his head. In case you're telling the truth, that means you're a monster. You are a monster that eats human brains, and I do not think you are capable of that type of issue. I gasped. If me, ingesting brains to survive, makes me a monster, what does that make you, huh? You turn right into a wolf, Jake. You switch into a wolf the dimensions of a horse and hunt vampires. But no, I am the monster, due to the fact I do what I need to do so that you can survive. I'm the disgusting freak of nature, right? I ended suddenly, disgusted with myself. Why trouble? He had already made up his mind. There has been nothing I may want to do to exchange it. It is no need, I said. My eyes stung but I refused to cry. Not once more, now not anymore. You will accept as true with what you need to agree with, and not anything will ever convince you otherwise. Go to hell, Jake. So I left. I walked away without turning again. I used to be executed. Carried out having to experience like a beggar. Executed having to express regret for doing not anything extra than current. While I was human I used to be sorry I used to be human. Constantly feeling like rubbish for doing nothing extra than current with a beating heart and blood. Now that I was useless, I would not make the equal mistake. I can be a freak, however I certain as hell wasn't a monster. And that I swore to myself I in no way might be. All and sundry who concept otherwise may want to stick it wherein the solar don't shine. I used to be finished. It became Friday earlier than I used to be referred to as back to the morgue after some other tortuous day of sophistication. There were an incident in Ozette. A few idiot running on his car didn't comfortable the jack. His large pickup truck had slammed down on him, killing him instantly. I sighed as I helped Ravi disintegrate the gurney's wheels so it is able to healthy in the ambulance that would deliver him to the morgue. The spouse had been crying uncontrollably, insisting that this was homicide and that her husband continually secured the jack when he turned into working on his automobile. So, a complete post-mortem had to be executed. That become all right with me. I was getting hungry besides. It wasn't quite insufferable, however it became better secure than sorry. It changed into getting overdue by the time all of the proper paperwork had been performed. I known as Charlie and advised him that I would be past due. He understood because he had to live overdue as properly. Because Ozette became so tiny, there were best approximately 4 component time beat cops, and as leader of police of Forks, Charlie might be looking after the general public of the investigation. Night time had already fallen by the point the actual autopsy commenced. Urine, saliva, and hair samples were taken. Ravi swabbed the internal of the mouth, the skin, and put the entirety inside the proper luggage and petri dishes. With the aid of looking at his liver, Ravi concluded that the victim became a persistent alcoholic. We decided that we would take a ruin after the belly exam. Ravi taught me to stitch up the skin, and I truly helped end up the examination. More paperwork had arrived by the historic fax device within the office, and that I highlighted where Ravi needed to sign a good way to make certain everything became looked after. You continuously deliver me gifts, Isabella, he said in a grand way when I pushed the 5 forms to him. And you are not going to get something on your birthday or Christmas. I've completed extra than enough here, I stated back at him. He set free a protest that I studiously unnoticed in favor of setting up the materials I might want as a way to get to the mind of the victim. The cell phone rang abruptly, making me jump. Forks Preferred Medical Institution Morgue, that is Isabella, how may additionally I assist you? I requested even as shuffling through the papers. Had I forgotten something? Hi Miss Swan, it's David, a sweet older gentleman who labored part-time directing calls on weekend nights. Hello David, is something incorrect? It wasn't me, I swear. It changed into likely Ravi, I stated. That earned a snigger out of him. I believe you omit Swan, he said. I'm on the front table right now and there may be a person who is inquiring for you. I straightened up. Ought to a person have recognized. Did they give a name? I requested. Yes, his call is Jacob Black, David stated. Do you want me to name safety? Huh. This can be thrilling. No, this is definitely not important. Factor him my way. Thank you David, have a terrific night time. You too, Miss Swan, David said and ended the call. I jogged again to Ravi's workplace. I'm hoping you've changed your thoughts. Approximately my birthday gives. Ravi started earlier than I had grabbed his coat and hauled him up. I grabbed his umbrella earlier than dragging him to the door. He allowed me hustle him midway to the door before unexpectedly sitting down at the ground in protest. You need to move, right now, I said. Rise up. I lightly tapped my toe over his kidney place. He flinched dramatically but his behind did now not begin shifting out the door. Not until you inform me what is occurring, he said. Jacob is on his way here. He stared at me blankly. He's a werewolf, one of the ones that turned into there after I killed Laurent. And his mood is unpredictable, and so is mine, and I don't need a fragile human getting inside the way if I want to get into a fistfight with a massive canine, so please leave, I stated with a smile. He be come out inside 5 seconds. I busied myself with organizing the files that had to be sent to the police station. Charlie stated he'd be running past due this night, so I debated calling him up to ensure the whole thing becomes so as. Finally I decided in opposition to it. Jake might be right here, and if we did become moving into a fist or have been zombie combat, I wouldn't want him to pay attention it. The minutes ticked with the aid of and that I questioned if Jake had gotten misplaced on his way right here. Despite the fact that the hospital turned into small, it could be difficult to get right down to the morgue. I shrugged and determined to get equipped for my dinner. I used to be recording the weight of the mind when Jake walked in. He said. I grew to become to study him. He changed into looking between me, the mind, and the partially protected corpse in front of me. Good day, I said, lower back. Simply over 3 pounds. Normal weight for a mind. Anything I let you with? Yeah, I just wanted to, make an apology if I made you experience such as you had been not an amazing man or woman. I didn't imply to make you experience like you are now not a great man or woman, due to the fact you. I picked up the mind and took a chunk. Jake gaped at me, his eyes widening. He have become sunglasses paler. I swallowed and dabbed at my lip. You were speaking about me being a good individual? I asked. Jake crumpled right into a heap. I took some other chewing slowly. It changed into a chunk tough, however it could have been worse. On the other hand, beggar zombies cannot be chooser zombies. A mind is a mind and it's going to must do. I swallowed and took any other chunk. I finished the frontal lobe quickly but left the rest for later. I was hungry, after all, and needed to figure out what exactly I was going to do with however many pounds of unconscious werewolf that was still in a heap on the floor. I also wondered when the last time someone had bothered to clean the floor. The janitors tended to avoid the morgue when they could get away with it. I mean recently, when work was slow, I ended up doing most of the cleaning. I mentally added it to the to-do list for my next shift, whenever that could be. I also had a team project due in chem. As distasteful as it was, I needed to keep my grades up. The guidance counselor did love reminding students that colleges could rescind an acceptance letter if the senioritis were to lead to a lower GPA. And besides, the option of college should be kept open, just in case. I was trying to figure out when the last time I saw the mop with the yellow mop press thingy was when Jake shot up suddenly. "What the?" he said. "What happened?" I looked at him with a poker face. Nothing happened. It was all a dream, a side effect of the ecstasy. How long was I out? He groaned, rolling to his side and pulling a chair toward him so he could hold on to something as he worked his way off the floor. Long enough for me to take a picture and put it on Instagram. It got 13,000 likes, so, "You're welcome for making you famous," I said as I was putting the rest of the brain in a Tupperware. "Oh my God, it was real," he said as I handled the brain. He turned an odd color and grabbed the trash can while starting to dry heave. I sighed, closed the container and turned away to put it in the fridge. "So, did you just come here to vomit or was there an actual reason? If it's the former, please clean up after yourself. I'm underpaid as is," I said with a bland smile. "I wanted to apologize for making you feel bad today. I know I hurt your feelings, but seriously, you can't just spring something like that on me," he said weakly. He didn't look at me at all. It hurt, but I squashed that feeling down. I didn't owe anyone anything. I told you I'm a zombie. Now you're mad at me for not telling you in plain terms that I'm a zombie. Is this a joke? Well, I didn't believe you," he said, raising his voice. "And that's not my problem," I yelled back, slamming my hand on the counter. A small crack appeared. I hoped it wouldn't come out of my paycheck. Anger rose like a bile in the back of my throat. I pushed it down with a vicious sort of glee, and focused on the task at hand. Jacob was silent for a while. I put things away around him as he was still. If he was going to do the silent game, so could I, except I would do it better out of pure spite. "So," he asked after a while. "So, what?" I snapped. "So what's going to happen from here?" he asked in a soft, unsure voice. I felt the anger lessen, just a little. This must be difficult for him, but on the other hand, I'd done nothing wrong, other than just existing. I shrugged and sighed. "I don't know. I'm cool with you being a not killing people werewolf, but if you're not cool with me being a zombie, that's fine. I already hate myself enough, and I'm working on dealing with the fact that my life is basically over. I don't really have the energy to deal with you hating me, if that's what you've decided to do." His face fell. "Bella, I don't hate you. I don't think I could, it's just I saw you eat a human brain." "And I saw you as a giant furry wolf," I interrupted. "We're both not functioning at peak form at the moment." He snorted. "Yeah, I guess you're right. I think I'll get used to it. It'll take a while though." "Yeah, like I'm the only one here who's a freak," I said, rolling my eyes. I didn't have malice behind it though. I didn't really have the power to change his mind, and even if I did, it wouldn't make any difference anyway. The ball was in his court, he needed to make the decision. He gave me a sad half smile and nodded. "So I guess I'll see you around." He phrased it like a question, which I didn't understand. He'd either see me or he wouldn't. "Jake, that's entirely up to you," I said. He nodded, gave me a wave and an unsure smile, and left out the door. "Coast is clear," I texted Ravi. A couple seconds later he called me. "No, I haven't destroyed the lab," I said as soon as I picked up. "Very funny, Bella," he said. "But really, are you okay?" I kinda want vodka. Or whiskey. Honestly, the higher proof the better," I said, which was an unwelcome surprise. Apparently, most people I had the pleasure of eating had some kind of chemical dependency vice. I wasn't going to judge, especially since I was the one eating their brain, but it got really old really fast. He sighed. "I'll be there in about 20, please have the paperwork ready for tomorrow. Detective Sullivan is going to be coming by sometime at some ungodly hour to go over autopsy findings. Good thing she's excited, this is the most work she's had to do all year. Pick me up something to drink too, okay?" I asked before he hung up, not dignifying that with a response. What an asshole. He didn't get me anything to drink either, that worthless prick. He just sent me home for appearance's sake so I could come back in 10 hours to go over the findings with Detective Cecilia Sullivan. I knew her a bit from when I'd go down to the station to annoy Charlie, and she was nice enough. She was a great cook, and I knew that from the occasional holiday or some other police get-together I'd attended. She would bring this amazing meaty and savory lasagna. With cheese. So much cheese. And her wife Lucia, oh, she would make these delicious spiced sugar cookies, like this heavenly, sweet, crumbly, melt-in-your-mouth sugary, buttery, goodness with a hint of nutmeg, with these cute little sprinkles that just... Okay, thinking about all the food I'll never taste again is a surefire way to cause instant depression in a newly created zombie. And I still had an unhealthy obsession with alcohol. In the morning, Charlie listened to me while I told him about having to go back so I can watch Ravi go through the autopsy findings for Det. Sullivan. When I spilled my coffee and dropped a couple F-bombs and insulted the coffee maker, his eyes widened but he only encouraged me to take a deep breath, which I did with barely contained fury. Nice of you to finally make it, Ravi said cheerfully as I rushed into the morgue. Sullivan was already there, and she gave me a smile that I was too pissed off to actually return. We were waiting for you so you could see the process, he explained as I changed into the spare lab coat. Awesome, I said with complete and absolute sincerity. What an asshole, but I had to pull it together, we had company. Deep breaths. Push down Matthew Fields, bring forth Bella Swan, I told myself. Ravi did a basic head-to-toe assessment of the victim, including the state of his eyes, slight tint of yellowing of the sclera and liver cirrhosis galore. The victim was obviously a chronic alcoholic and kidneys not in peak condition, too much salt really screws up the system. He then moved on to the injuries, including cause of death, which he ultimately concluded was a toss-up between the head trauma causing swelling of the brain in both the cerebellar and frontal lobes, or the broken ribs that went into the heart and lungs causing hemorrhage. I took Sullivan through the defensive wounds on the arms under supervision of Ravi, mainly focusing on the fractures to the left wrist and right elbow. So, basically, he was lying supine on the creeper, like this, I said, lying on my back, arms to my sides. And he was working on something so his arms would be up, like this, I continued, bringing my hands above my head. The jack was to the left of the deceased, about 2 feet or so, Sullivan said, right about here. She came forward to stand about 2 feet to my left. Now we did find evidence of shoe prints not belonging to the victim or his wife, and she said they hadn't had visitors that day, not even delivery, so it is possible someone could have either tampered with or kicked the jack without the wife knowing. The fractures are defensive in nature, I continued, throwing in the quote Ravi gave me the night before. His left wrist and elbow joint was fractured due to the pressure of the car, but the wrist in a flexed position. The right arm was covering the eyes, like this, I said while bringing my right arm over my face while flexing my left wrist like I was trying to push something. So, theoretically, he knew it was a possibility, right? That the car could fall. I mean, if it was a sudden drop, it would have been way too fast for him to get his arm in that position. And his knee was bent too, in the initial discovery, like he was trying to scoot the creeper out from the car. So, she walked away, then walked back toward me at a quick pace. Angry words, angry words. I took the hint and moved my leg like I was using my heel to bring me out from underneath the car, and brought my arm down to cover my face. And then, bam, she mimed kicking the jack out with her right foot, causing the victim's death. And then I wasn't there anymore. My wife. My wife. What the hell, Matt? My wife. A man's voice screamed. Blue-green running shoes were visible, but they were covered in dirt, and so were the hems of the jeans over the shoes. Ollie, I don't know what the hell, I said, trying to get out so I could face him, but he was still yelling. Then the pling of screws coming undone, metal clattering to the floor, and I was back with a gasp. You still there? Sullivan asked with a bemused look on her face. I swallowed and nodded. Yeah, I'm fine. Sullivan started talking to herself, making a list of things to do like background checks, following up with the CS techs, interviewing the wife again, and asking Ravi for a formal copy of the death report. I went to the desk and brought out the paperwork that I completed the night before, which impressed Sullivan, who thanked us for our time, complimented my crime scene reenactment skills, and left. As soon as the door shut, I put my head in my hands and groaned. What was that? Ravi demanded. You saw something, didn't you? I nodded, not fully able to speak. I didn't feel like I could yet. The words were stuck so far down my throat I could feel them, fear almost palpable on my tongue. Come on then. What happened? I saw him die. Ravi, I interrupted. I felt it. There was a man, Matthew called him Ollie, and Ollie was yelling something about his wife. Maybe an affair, maybe an assault, I don't know, but I did feel his fear. Ravi was silent, his face carefully neutral. He saw the jack get kicked, and the fear, I whispered, tears in my eyes. I felt his fear, only for a moment, but still. I felt it. You have to tell Sullivan, Ravi said earnestly. Bella, you have to. This was murder, manslaughter in the least. They have to know who did this. And what, exactly, am I going to say? Hey, by the way, I ate this guy so I know who killed him. Surprise. I scoffed. I can't say anything. It's too dangerous for me. The end.